It's a magic number. Yes, it is. It's the magic number.
What does it all mean?
Hello and welcome to Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy. That's me, Matthew Syed. Some fascinating topics this week. Is sport becoming boring? The value of money and black box thinking. What can we learn from failure? All three of us want to say really sincerely a big thank you for the incredible and candid feedback after last week's podcast on mental health using the hashtag FredSavSide. But before we get going on this episode, let's find out, as we always do, what we've all been up to. Fred.
Oh, me. I see you've crowbarred black box thinking in the game, Matthew.
I know.
Our book sales down or something,
Yeah.
eh?
Dipped by 10%.
You know what,
Fred,
when we discussed what topics we're going to do, I phoned Matthew in the week. You know, you've been away. What do you want to do? He said, we have to do black box thinking. On the back of such a successful podcast last week, I need to do black box thinking now.
Savage, you are a snake in the grass.
It is getting a little bit embarrassing, Matthew. I'm going to be honest. I'm the voice of reason in the minute and in the middle, and it's getting embarrassing, Matthew.
Yeah, I know, Fred.
Seriously,
Fred.
I was about to have a shower yesterday morning.
Well, you didn't
Robbie,
have one. I thought it was a bit of a smell.
Robbie phoned up, and I had a different topic, and he said, "Why don't we do black box thing?"
Oh, I'm not having this, Matthew.
I did.
And I said, "Okay, but make sure when you go onto the WhatsApp group, tell Freddie and Mike, the producer, and Stan, make sure they know it was your idea." And his first thing that comes out when I jump out of the shower is Matthew says, adamant, it has to be black box thinking. True or false, Robbie?
You're right, Matthew.
It's not my words, Matthew, but people are starting to say you're a one-trick pony. But, you know, I just want to... But talking about our weeks, I've had a busy week. I've been in Malta. I've been filming a new show for a TV station that's not the BBC.
Oh, controversial.
And it's been in Malta.
Yeah.
Malta, what a place that is. I mean, heck, I got on the plane, and you remember that film, Cocoon?
Yeah.
Real old people.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, this aeroplane was like the equivalent of the... Oh, it's old, isn't it? I've never seen so many chinos and white trainers. Unbelievable. And I finished filming at 4 o'clock this morning. I'm a little bit hoarse. I got excited whilst I was filming. A little bit tired. I've been living on black coffee. Flew back straight from the airport. I've got my bags. I've got everything to do this podcast.
Who is the greatest Maltese sports person? Can you think of any famous?
Tony Drago.
Tony Drago.
Tony Drago.
Good player.
Amazing. Yeah. Did you know that Malta was awarded the St. George's Cross as an island?
For their contribution to the war?
To the war.
Wow, no.
There's more unexploded bombs in the marina than anywhere in the world.
Gosh, wow. Interesting.
That's it. Finished.
Knowledge, Fred. Good knowledge, that, Fred.
Rob?
Not much, Matthew.
Other than stitching me up, what else is going on?
So I was doing research all week. I had a couple of big football matches, and you know, basically fending off people on social media because I got done a massive error in my commentary the night from Manchester United. Done all my research, Fred.
What did you do?
So first minute of the game.
First minute, you made a mistake.
Yeah, I know.
Surely you're concentrating on first minute. How can you make a mistake on first minute?
I did hold my hands up. Sometimes you're thinking I've got it wrong. So basically, done my research on the teams. Teams come out. I know my players, of course I do. And Romero was in goal for Manchester United, as he's played most of the games in the Europa League. And then in the first minute, ball comes across. Oh, great save from David De Gea. Oh, well, that was it. Floodgates open.
I don't know what Romero looks like, but I know what De Gea looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's such a shocking. In the first minute, first minute, Robbie Savage.
So basically, fending off people on social media.
Did you recover from it?
I've recovered, I think, but just an honest mistake. But you're allowed to make them.
What was the next one? Oh, it's a great header at the back from Gary Pallister.
So that was my week. Couple of good football matches.
So I've been direct messaging the British
Did anybody ask?
Rowing Association. No, not yet. I've jumped the gun here.
No, sorry, Matthew. What have you done?
Thanks, man. British Rowing Association DMing about the showdown that we discussed on last week's podcast on two erg machines in Salford Quays between Fred Flintoff and Sir Steve Redgrave.
You know what? I forgot all about that.
Did you see the tweet they put out there? Is it the ergo rowers? The ergo
they
machines?
look like animals on that.
Oh, they are good and strong.
Oh, get over it.
Yeah,
It's
they
just
do.
a fancy word for pulling a stick.
I'm getting the impression
I'm having it.
Sir Steve is bottling it. Do you think we should call him out more, or would you be facing
I
Catherine Granger?
Catherine Granger?
Battle of the Sexes.
Oh. I don't know. Catherine Granger, she's stronger, isn't she? A little bit younger. She's quite intelligent as well, isn't she? She's a
We
lawyer.
can have a chat while you're doing the erg.
Who can? Oh, well, I don't know how I've ended up getting into this.
Well, yeah,
I forgot all about it. I've not even been on a rowing machine this week. I'll be back on this next week, though. I tell you what, British rowing, bring whoever you want.
Yes.
Bring them all.
Yes, fair, like
line them up, one after another.
Yes.
Okay, the challenge is still on. Topic number 1. Now, this is an intriguing one. This is yours, Fred.
Oh.
Are sports people becoming boring due to professionalism? What did you have in mind here?
Well, when I first started playing sport and I first started watching it, you had sports and it had people in it where it was glamorised. Even snooker, it had some characters. It had your Kirk Stevens, your Alex Higgins, your big Bill Werbenex. Even Ray Reardon played his part in Cliff Thorburn. And you knew where you were with it.
I feel like back in the 80s here.
Exactly. Cricket, even though the 80s weren't particularly good, people enjoyed watching your Bothams and your Gowers and your Lambs. You know, David Gower flying over the cricket ground in a plane while they're playing. Football, you know, you had your Kevin Keegans and these guys. Yeah. And where have these people...
Superstars, remember Superstars?
Yeah,
but where's these people gone in sport? And I relate it to my career. When I started, cricket should not have been a professional game, but it was fun. Mm-hmm. And then through my career, I saw it change very slowly, where professionalism came in more and more and more, to the point I thought, it's getting a little bit boring, this. They're held back. They're told what to say. They're told when to do it, what to do. Just let them go a little bit. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I agree. It's a difficult one, though, because, you know, the professionalism, and I think in modern day sport, you know, if you say anything wrong, you're going to be in massive trouble. So I do understand to a point the cliched answers.
But what's wrong? What is wrong? If you play a football match and you come off, I don't want some lad standing there going, well, it was a game of two halves and the gaffer's going to be mad with us afterwards. I don't know. It's a generic footballer. It's just a generic footballer. Generic. Yeah, the gaffer's going to have a word and it'll be a big week in training. Yeah.
Got to take the positives.
Yeah, but
don't tell me on the positives. I remember England captain, I come off, we've got beat again. I just want to say, do you know what? We're absolutely rubbish. We are rubbish. But no, I've got to drag the positives out of it. Oh, well, the positives today, it was a sunny day, wasn't it? It's like, no positives.
Was the PR person for the England cricket team, would he talk to you or she talk to you before you did a press conference and say, avoid that issue, don't go on to that topic, and they would give you the sort of parameters of what your answers ought to be?
You'd walk in and you've got your press man next to you. He's next to you, and then you have a chat as you walk in and he's saying, well, this fella from here, he's going to go at this, he's going to go at that. Don't engage in this one here. Right. If there's been a bit of a spit on the field or a spat, just dumb it down. Don't build it up again. Let it go. So you told what to say. And even though I've been guilty of this, when I watch sport now, I'm tearing my hair out. Because I know what they're going to say, but I've done it. You know, and I truly believe a personal opinion is not wrong.
But that personal opinion get you in massive trouble.
Robbie,
trouble. So when I went from Birmingham to Blackburn, everybody knew I was going to go to Blackburn, and I said I wanted to be close to the home. And to be fair, it was a small part of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But in the press conference after the game, I scored at Fulham. We won 3-2. I scored a great volley past Van der Sar, and I was brilliant.
If you say so yourself.
I was. I had a good game.
Kicked the ball that time.
I kicked the ball, and then after the game,
world class.
And after the game, in the interview, the question was, Robbie, speculation about you going to Blackburn Rovers. Can you tell us? I went, well, I'm a Birmingham player. Well, no, Robbie, you know, there's speculation with you going to Blackburn Rovers. I said, but at the minute I'm a Birmingham player. If I'd have come out and said, do you know what? Yeah, I want to leave. I've had enough of this club. I want more money. I want to be close to my parents. I want to go and play for my idol. If it didn't come off, what would have happened?
Yeah, but I'm not saying every instance. There are instances like that where you've got to keep your cards a little bit close to your chest. Use a bit of nous, Robbie.
I did.
But
I was professional.
It was professional, but you didn't really commit, did you? I'm a Birmingham player.
Yeah, correct.
It's like, well, for a minute, he's off, isn't he? So even by saying that, you've given inclination. If you'd have said, you know what, this football club, Birmingham, they've been so good to me. I've touched the ball in a game today, and I've scored a goal. I've scored a goal. They've stuck with me all this time when I've not done very much. And now I'm going to stay. I love this club.
I was never going to stay, though.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Did you ever get into trouble for saying something that the club thought was out of order?
Yeah. I played Manchester United. We were playing for Birmingham at home. We drew the game 0-0. and I said something a bit derogatory towards Manchester United, but it was twisted.
What was it?
I can't remember what it was, Fred. It was in a magazine. It was twisted. And then what happened was, obviously the magazine or the people had given it to the paper, back page of the paper on the Friday, the day before we played Manchester United, was Robbie Savage says X, Y, and Z. And I remember Brucey called me up to the office and said, what on earth are you doing? You blah, 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 blah. I said, Gaffer. It was...
There you go, Gaffer. I told you.
Gaffer. You mean I said I've said it, but it didn't... It's been
Why
twisted.
did it... Sorry, go on, Rob. I'm jumping in.
Yeah, it's been twisted. So good job we drew that game 0-0.
You were going to ask, why do they call...
Why did it... Everyone's a Gaffer. A Gaffer. Why is a Gaffer?
I have no idea.
Gaffer tip?
Where's it come from?
I don't know.
Where's the word come from, Matthew? Gaffer?
Isn't it something from a film set? Gaffer. Isn't that the name of a title of somebody?
Well, you're the
on a
man
film
who
set?
writes for the Times and does all big words. You should know what Gaffer is.
Exactly, is above this nonsense.
Seriously, yeah.
Isn't it? It just means boss, doesn't it?
It is, but why?
Boss.
They call every manager Gaffer.
Yeah. Why is that?
I remember Sparky when first 4 months at Blackburn. I was calling him Sparky, and then he pulled me in and said, better start calling me Gaffer now. Yeah. But it was my mate though.
But I got that when I was trained at Burnley. We Stan the man, Tennant. I was calling him Stan. Yeah. And then he pulled me to one side, and he says, "In front of lads, will you call me Gaffer?"
But in terms of professionalism now, the world's changed. We don't want to go to social media, but if you're unprofessional now, will the rewards be there for you? Mm-hmm. If you're unprofessional, you won't be as good as you are in your career. Therefore, will the rewards be there for you? You can't go out and do the things that you used to, because I've been in hotels and places around the world when I've seen some unbelievable things. I'm sure you have, Fred, and it was very unprofessional at the time, but because of social media, it was never out there. Mm-hmm. In this day and age now, the press used to go to the hotels
have a
and
drink with you as well.
Yeah. Now, because of the world we live in,
after a story.
I mean, you can't. I think you have to be so professional, so equitable. Not equitable. What's that?
I'm not. Don't look at me as if I know what you're on about.
The word eloquent.
That's ironic.
That's the word. That's the word that I'm looking for. Eloquent. I couldn't think of the word.
Where'd you get that one
Very
from?
eloquent.
You have to be eloquent. You have to be, and if you say anything out the ordinary and you're unprofessional, it will come back and it will haunt you.
But the other strand of professionalism is when you started playing football, you're in Wrexham on a field, it was fun, you could express yourself. Same with cricket. Professionalism, you have all of these new members of staff, psychologists and nutritionists who are telling you what to do. They deconstruct what a performance is about, they analyse it on video, and then you have to go out and perform. Does that take some of the fun and spontaneity out of sport?
Well, I remember when I started, you get your team photograph and you got the team. And you have a coach and you have a manager. Yeah. And then I reckon if I go through the years, year on year, there's another one added on. There's a dietitian, there's a mind man, there's someone to do the bags, there's someone to do the washing, there's someone to pick your nose and scratch your bum. There's all these people everywhere, and the photograph was getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So
this is for the England team.
Yeah, I suppose on them grounds as well, but I put a bit of it down to camera phones.
You're right.
Camera phones, everyone's got a phone, everyone wants a photograph, everyone wants to take a picture where you are out and about. And I look at my career, and I was professional towards the end, but not particularly professional at the start, which is fine. And people often say, if you'd have trained like you do now or the end of your career at the start of your career, would you be a better player? And I don't know. And I don't care, to be honest, because I really enjoyed it.
He's tired. He's just gone from Malta.
Have another coffee, Fred.
I'm not saying I really don't
Can
care.
we get a cappuccino, Stan?
No milk. I'm off the dairy. I really enjoyed the first part of my career, getting things wrong and learning from my mistakes.
Yep.
And I look back at now what I do as a job. If I'd have been so professional all the way through the career, I would not be doing the jobs I'm doing now. So it's twofold. Well, go on, Rob, you want to say
No, go on.
Go on.
I was going to say, who's the most professional person you've worked with? In terms of... Mine's Craig Bellamy.
Wow, really?
That'll shock people. Got to say, friend of mine, and you can say what you want about Craig Bellamy, on the field and training, the most professional person I've ever worked with. Really? One of the best out of every teammate. He used to... I remember he used to have an oxygen tent he used to sleep in, for his injuries.
Wow.
He took it to the extreme.
Yep.
In training, he'd be hammering everybody. Not because being nasty, because he wanted the best out of every single player. Training had to be right. Everything had to be done most professional player, Craig Bellamy.
But doesn't that show you can be professional and a character at the same time?
And he's a character.
Bellamy was an incredible character.
He's somebody that will say what he thinks.
Controversial.
You know what I mean?
Was he any good?
Yeah, what?
Was he any good?
Yeah, Craig Bellamy was.
Seriously.
Yeah, really good. He played for Liverpool, Manchester City, Blackburn, Newcastle, Wales.
He got around the traps, didn't he?
Yeah, he's fantastic. What, Coventry City. Very good player.
Professionalism has made the spectacle on the field of play less interesting.
Well, I think about it, and you dissect everything, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, everyone's got a plan, and everyone's working towards something. And I think football sometimes... I heard, right, this is unbelievable. I heard, really, listen to this, Rob. Phil Neville called the Premier League boring. So if that's Phil Neville saying that, it's got to be boring because he needs to sharpen up a bit. So Phil Neville says that. But is that because you have...
He's a big listener to this podcast, Phil. He loves it.
And he retweets it.
Yeah, he retweets it.
I like Phil. Do you know you talk about professionalism?
Like
Oh, amazing guy.
Do you know, as a kid...
Yeah.
Phil Neville was professional. Yeah. I played cricket with him, and I've said it before, he was far better than me, an all-rounder, so pleased he played football than I could play cricket. Yeah. But even as a kid, you could see someone who's going to be very, very professional about what they did. He was fit, he practiced hard, unbelievable. But in football, Rob, don't you think, when Phil's saying the Premier League is a bit boring, is that because there's so many tactics and they break the game down so much that they just nullify each other?
I think as well, because it's
like United and people at the minute.
Matthew, Premier League is a business now, isn't it? When you get to 40 points, the consequences of getting relegated from the Premier League in this day and age is
but I think
terrible,
it's
isn't it?
Unfair to say. I mean, I think some of the matches that Neville referred to haven't been that dramatic. But if you look at the matches that are played this season, some of the incredible clashes, exciting football, and compare it with the 1970s and 80s. You can watch some of the old games on ESPN. I think football is still one of the best spectacle sports that you get out of any of them. I think it's unfair to say it's become overly tactical, overly deconstructed. I think the Premier League preeminently, far more than Italian football, there's still heart on your sleeves, passionate football being played.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's been very, very good, and people will rate it to the Champions League.
Yeah.
You watch Real against Atletico, and it's a different level of football. And the Premier League, I think the level of the Premier League in terms of the 20 teams is the best. And you will get some games which are dull, which are boring, because teams are that scared about getting relegated. Teams are that scared of not getting the top four.
But where's the Cantonas, the Vieiras, these guys? Where are they? Where have they gone, Rob?
Oh, there's some unbelievable footballers today.
In terms of characters,
Go on,
I think
you're saying that, but you've not named any.
Well, Cristiano Ronaldo, Ibrahimovic, Pirlo, Costa, Suarez, Neymar, Totti, Tevez, Balotelli. I mean, these are fantastic. He's a character, isn't he?
There you go. So Balotelli is Balotelli then?
He's in Premier League.
Yeah, but he was.
He was, and they got rid of him. He's rubbish.
But in terms of, you want people to say more and be more like, not you were when you were younger. He is a perfect example, no?
Yeah.
Balotelli.
Yeah,
the fireworks in his, fireworks let off you in your bathroom or whatever. But in terms of what he says and how he was sliding through the airport security on his knees, like,
you got to back it up a bit. I heard a story about him. His mum came over to stay with him, and she sent him out shopping. He came back with a Vespa and a trampoline. Seriously, that's the story.
I heard.
That's the story that's doing the rounds.
Do you think this
now
word...
he's in France on his Vespa.
This word brand has anything to do with why athletes don't like to say controversial things in interviews? They're worried that if they say something that alienates a certain section of society, they're going to be less important to a big brand to be associated with. Take Michael Jordan. He sells millions of pairs of shoes through Nike.
Good shoes, though.
Fantastic shoes. He made $110 million last year. He retired in 2003. That's the power of his brand. But if he was to say, for example, something political, say he was to back Donald Trump, are any Democrats going to buy shoes associated with Michael Jordan if he has a completely different political opinion?
Robbie.
Oh, it's been bad, this one. I
Robbie,
like the way you've done that.
Robbie, check this out. There was an election when was it? It was about 20 years ago, and a Republican senator called Jesse Helms, who was a borderline racist. They asked Michael Jordan to endorse the campaign to unseat him, and do you know what he said? He said, "Why would I do that? Republicans buy trainers too?
I think it has a massive effect. I think that's why you find a lot of sports people, a lot of celebrities not too political, and they don't get involved in the bigger questions in society. And the ones that do are the ones like you see Lily Allen or someone at the minute who always has an opinion on everything, whether it's right or not.
Yeah.
And she just gets hammered by people.
Yeah.
So I think there is something in that. We saw with the Donald Trump election where all of Hollywood just got put back in the place, didn't it? Yeah. All these people are coming out saying, oh, don't vote for him, don't vote for that. And then I think everyone thought, you know what, we like you in films, just pipe down a little bit. We'll vote for who we want to.
I don't think I'm clever enough or, educated enough to know about that kind of stuff.
One of the things, we mentioned snooker in the 80s.
Yep.
And sports like snooker are crying out for characters. Ronnie O'Sullivan, when he doesn't play, the game is a lesser thing.
So true.
You've got the jester from Leicester, Selby. You're not really a jester, is he? Let's be honest. Ronnie O'Sullivan in snooker. We see with darts. Darts, I'm sure them guys, in their own way, are very professional. They must practice and stand in front of a board and throw darts all day and walk all that way to the board and back. And the one thing I think the appeal of darts is the crowd look at these guys, see normal fellas and think, you know what, if these guys weren't playing darts, he'd be sat right next to me here playing. Yeah. Cricket used to have that. Cricket used to have that charm, that identification from the public and the fans.
That's so true.
I think it's just going a little bit like football.
And isn't that part of sport? We don't just watch sport to see the skills of the athletes. We want to know their backstories. We want to know their personalities. We want to know what this means to them.
We don't get to know them now, Matthew, do we? Don't get to know them.
Okay,
and it's
tell
easier
me this.
when you're retired to do what me and him are doing now, but it's harder.
Do you think us, as journalists in the media, are partly to blame for that? Because when athletes are completely open and honest, your words can sometimes get twisted. Should people like me take some of this on the chin?
It's not so much twisted. I think it's more having a trust. Yeah. You see, with the cricket, you used to have a drinks reception with the journalists and you got to know people.
Even during your career?
Yeah, and you got like a rapport with certain people. But then to me, journalism started changing a little bit. I don't know whether it was the internet age, but everyone's after the next story. Everyone's after a bigger or better story than someone else. So journalists became, I think, competitive between each other. The moral compass changed a little bit, where they would write anything up. And I think players have become more and more guarded of not just journalists, but of the public as well, because the public now have got instant access to putting things out there.
You talk about journalists. When I played, they'd give you a list who's there, and I'd say, well, I'm not speaking to him, not speaking to her, because in the past they would have twisted something I've said.
Right.
So if you've got 10 journalists, I might say I'll speak to him, her, him, and her. 4. Oh, I'm just saying.
No.
I'm just saying, out of the 4 out of the 10.
Did you get upset?
Tell you what, if they twist your words, it might make sense.
You're tired.
Who's tired now? Who's tired now?
Are you tired?
Seriously,
give me the coffee stand.
I'm the one who's gone to Multi. You've got the tan. You've got the tan.
You're in the mood. You're in the mood.
You're still using that new cream? That new tanning cream?
Yeah, but I think,
what's it called, that new tanning cream you use?
Good, so you put your moisturiser in your hand, rub it, your moisturiser in, and you put 2 pipettes, drop 2 pipettes things in it.
What?
You know the pipette?
Oh, stop twisting his words.
Yeah, you got a pipette. You suck out the droplets and then squeeze them into your moisturiser.
This is riveting.
Yeah, and then rub it on your face.
Terrific.
It's brilliant.
It's one step
and you don't
forward.
get any stains on your hands.
This podcast does everything.
2 steps back with Rob, isn't it?
No stains.
Everyone was loving him last week, and now someone's just pulled the carpet from under his feet. Back to square one, Rob. I hope the next topic's deep.
No, be honest, look, I've got no.
You are totally stitching
You're in the mood today,
This
you are,
is
Andrew.
brilliant.
You're in the mood today.
Just one
I'm
question.
enjoying myself. I'm back with my friends.
Yes, you are. Yes, you
I
are.
didn't realise that since I've been away, you've got all tetchy. I mean, hey, Rob, since I've got away, you've changed. What's wrong with you? All of a sudden, you're taking yourself very seriously again. Thought we got rid of that.
Can we just finish with one quick question? So I've been a victim as a journalist. You go into a room with a sports person. They've got a PR advisor next to them. You ask them any interesting question. They shut it down. You can't talk about that. We don't want to discuss that, particularly with very famous sports people like Tiger Woods or Cristiano Ronaldo. So the question I wanted to ask is if you could take away the mask and pierce through the armour and find out what a sports person is really like, spend an hour with them, find out what motivates them, what inspires them, what their insecurities are. I mean, for me, it would be Tiger Woods for sure. I think there's been a real mask there. He's got massive commercial endorsements. I'd love to hear what's really going on in his head, why he fell apart, how he feels about his infidelity, the whole works. I think that would be a fascinating interview if you could really get him to speak openly. What about you guys?
Go on, Rob.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Because you see him, his longevity, winning trophies in every country. You know, he's just had a serious knee injury now. Yeah. And again, you know, I read somewhere that they're going to send him for tests because his knee was that strong and that good. He's a freak because he's that powerful. I don't know how true it was. I'm sure I read it in a newspaper. But what kept him going for so long at the top, coming to Manchester United when everybody wrote him off to score 28 goals this season. You know, then his wages were in the paper the other day. You know, what was something like 367 grand a week because he was on a free transfer. But I tell you what, 28 goals return at a club like Manchester United, all the pressure on him. I think he's earned that this year, and people might disagree with that. But it was a free transfer. Yeah. It was a free transfer, and the going rate for somebody who would score 28 goals in the Premier League this season, you're talking about 300 grand a week. People go to China. There's people that go to the new Chinese Super League for 500-600 grand a week.
I think that's a great shout. And I think he grew up in an immigrant ghetto in a small Swedish city. I think it might have been Malmo. He stole bicycles and he had a real delinquent past, and then he managed to channel his passion and his ability towards. I think that's a great.
And you never hear about the stories about him and all this. He seems like a real family man. Yeah. You know, the way he holds himself. He thinks he's the great. You know, you listen to him talk. He thinks he's the greatest. He's fantastic. I'd love to.
I once spent an hour with him in Sweden across a table, and I asked him something like, you know, who do you most admire in the whole world? And he said, Zlatan.
Good man. Because he came to view our house.
Oh,
what?
He?
Well, when he came over, I was trying to get rid of the house. I thought, you know, when these footballers come in, we can get a price. I didn't really. But his missus came round to view the house with his two boys.
Swedish woman, right?
And the missus came round, and the missus said she was one of the loveliest women she's ever met. The two boys were playing with my kids. And she said, look, we don't want to buy, though. We want to rent. And we look after it. They took her shoes off at the door, like you do.
Yeah.
And then she was saying, look, we don't drink, we don't smoke, we don't go out, we don't do very much. And I thought about it afterwards. I know Zlatan comes out with all these big statements, but you've never ever seen anything. You've never seen him coming out of a nightclub there. You've never seen him. He's a professional, that lad.
The deal broke down at 40 grand a month, Matthew. All right, Fred, who's livening up now?
Straight back at you.
All right, Fred. All right, give him a coffee.
God, so what about you? If you had to,
well, Matthew, it's never going to happen. It would never, ever happen. But the one person I would speak to is Desmond Douglas. I would say, Desmond Douglas, you fantastic table tennis player. How did you feel when Matthew Syed tried to cheat you?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Final of the Nationals, 98.
Do you know who I'd go with? I would go with Lance Armstrong.
Brilliant.
Lance Armstrong, for the obvious. I just don't understand. I can't get my head round a person who he gets accused on a daily basis of cheating. He sets up foundations. He comes across as holier than thou. He's dating Sheryl Crow. He's doing everything, all this good stuff. But underneath it all, he's taking out, isn't he? Yeah. Just to try and pedal a little bit faster.
Living a lie.
Oh, unbelievable. But do you know the one thing which, I don't know if I should commend him for this or hate him for this, is the fact that, do you know, you talk about sports people being single-minded and a sheer desire to win. He epitomises that, doesn't he? Let's be honest. He'd hope to win him. But turns out I've won the same amount of Tour de France's as him now.
Exactly. And it's probably worth saying that you could have somebody like Armstrong who's prepared to break the rules in his single-minded quest to win the Tour de France. We have someone like Federer, who for me is a great athlete, but never compromise his values. You can have great values and single-mindedness. Armstrong had single-mindedness and terrible values, but that would be an incredible conversation.
Matthew?
I'd go for Woods.
Tiger Woods.
Keep
up, Rob. I'm the one who's tired. He's already told us.
You're listening to a BBC 5 Live podcast.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
If you like this, you might also like this.
606, the UK's biggest football debate.
You can use all the excuses imaginable. These guys get paid a lot of money.
To find out more about our range of podcasts, click, tap or swipe bbc.co.uk/5live.
Next topic, the value of money. How did you guys handle it when you started earning big cash from cricket and football? What were your best and worst purchases? Did you get any help in trying to shepherd your money and to invest for the future? What was it like? Robbie, this is your topic.
I'm just, like you pointed out, I am tired. I'm just going to nod off for 10 minutes here because Robbie's going to fill this segment. Hey? Well, I mean, Robbie.
So basically, Matthew, I was on £150 a week accrue. Used to borrow money off my mum to take my girlfriend, who is now my wife, out. Borrowed X amount of pounds of her. When I signed for Leicester City, I think I owed her about 9 or 10 grand in the money I borrowed because she bought me a little car, borrowed me money to take my wife out. And so when I actually joined Leicester, I had nothing. I had to give her the 9 or 10 grand back. So when I went from 150 quid a week to 3.5 grand a week, the first thing I'd done was what?
Wow, hang on a minute. How old were you then?
I was 21, 22.
21, 22?
Yeah. I was 150 quid a week accrue and then went to Leicester on 3.5 grand a week and a 50 grand a year sign-on fee. So 4 grand a week.
Wow.
When I was 4, and it's like, Fred, it was like, I can't explain it. It was bizarre. Like you're borrowing money off your mum 1 minute, like to get some jeans or on a new shirt, and then you're on £4,000 a week. And I remember I had a little Fiesta, and I crashed it, and I thought, what can I buy? So I bought a pink Porsche.
You did, hang on.
Whoa,
You crashed it.
I bought a pink Porsche. My mum tells a story.
You went from a Fiesta to a pink Porsche.
So when I signed for Leicester, so I remember I signed for Leicester and I went there with my agent, my dad. Anyway, on the way home, I went past this garage. And
you saw a pink Porsche?
So my mum tells a story. She said, this lad...
I didn't know they made them.
Yeah, this lad drives me mad. He said, he left our little house in Wrexham in a white Fiesta. He turned up in a bloody pink Porsche 4 hours later.
Why did you get a pink one?
No idea. It was there.
Is it bright pink?
It was like purpley pink. Like a big purple pink.
How much
Right
did it
off
cost?
Katie Price?
No, it was about, it was a second-hand one. It was about 60 grand.
Oh, whoa!
Yeah. And the thing is...
I can imagine him at shop. Here he comes, lads. Here he comes.
It was...
Hey, we'll get rid of this to this. He's coming in now. That's savage. He'll buy this. He'll buy this.
And it was like, because I've now always loved cars, it was like, this is it. We're on finance. All my cars have always been on finance. I would never go and spend 100 and odd grand on a car and pay the cash. I've had finance like everybody else does, I think, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so because when you're earning that much money, Matthew, and it's bizarre, it's the most bizarre thing. And listen, I don't want to be big-headed because I'm not. No. But when you've gone from having nothing, borrowing money, to going in shops where you can just say, I'll have that, don't look at the price tags. It's when you go to like the next level of money, which for me was quite a lot more in terms of when I played rugby in the Premier League. You don't look at things in the shop. I'll have that. My wife's completely different. She looks at prices. I'm back to where I was at the beginning now.
Yeah.
But when you're bringing home 70, 80,000 pound a month.
Yeah.
How much?
Well, at times you're thinking of Premier League players in my day. You're bringing home 70, 80,000 pound a month. Money is just a different world. And
so the first big paycheck, you went out and bought a pink Porsche.
Yeah.
What did your salary what did he say?
What did the lad say when you rock up in a pink
Porsche?
Porsche?
What do you think? Who's this clown here? Who's this fool?
No, before the Porsche.
But it blew up the same night I bought it.
What, the Porsche?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a bonus, wasn't it? You got rid of it.
It blew up. The engine went in the first night I had it. Incredible. But never mind.
So
that was
they
my
did see
lot.
you coming.
Yeah, they did.
Matthew was asking him what.
And then after that, your salary was pretty stable. Then it went up again.
Yeah.
What happened to your spending?
Your holidays get better. Mm-hmm. Say your holidays get better. Your car gets better.
So give us an example of holidays.
So
where would you have gone?
So, for instance, you would go to, I like Portugal, but not in terms of the level. The same places would be the same, but you'd go for a better room.
Yeah.
And you'd go for, maybe on the plane, you wouldn't go economy, you'd go business class. I think, what are you looking at that for? I'm just being honest here.
No.
Not because you have to, but on the long haul ones then, you would, when you have kids, have a bed to sleep on the way home. It might come across as big-headed, but I did it because I could.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And one point where I bought a boat.
Boat?
A rowing boat?
No.
A rowing boat?
Like a big one.
What big boat?
Like a yacht kind of thing.
So, how much was that?
So let me tell you the story.
Where did you keep it?
Exactly.
Were you one of them where you're on path
So listen,
that was in water?
Can I just say that I was very, very fortunate. Very fortunate. But it's when you go from having nothing to having money, which you can only dream of, at a level, you're thinking, wow, I can have anything. So remember, we used to go to Abersock. That was my wife's holiday, to have Abersock every year.
You said they got better. You've gone to Wales.
Oh, it's beautiful.
We used to go to
It's not.
Prestatyn.
Never been.
It is nice.
Cheshire on Sea.
We used to go to Prestatyn. My nan had a caravan.
Yeah,
We used to
my
go-
grandparents lived there for a long time.
yeah, Prestatyn, which was great. So anyway, bought a boat.
Did you buy a hat and a blazer? Did you
No.
get all the gear and a pair of deck shoes?
I bought shoes. Yeah, I tied my jumper around my shoulders.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Did you have a cravat?
No, but the jumper.
You would now, wouldn't you?
I would now. So went to Abersock. Had a little 19-footer, so I could go there the weekends, get the dinghy on the back and the rubber ring and tow my mates and try and get them off. Then I went to like a 25-footer.
What were you? What?
Seriously. Seriously, it was bizarre. It's a bizarre story, isn't it? Then I went to a 35-footer and the money kept going up. And because with boats, you can't stop.
35 foot?
You can't
can
stop.
You
You can't.
What do you mean you
Yeah,
can't?
you
You can.
you get addicted
You should
to it.
start.
You can't.
Are you one of them looking at everyone's boat in
Yeah.
Marina thinking, I want a bigger
Yeah,
one?
you
than-
do. You feel.
I want a bigger one than Bob next to me. He sells carpets.
You park it, and there's like, you're looking at next to you, and I was always the smallest boat in between two massive
Oh,
ones.
that'd have killed you.
Yeah, oh.
That would have killed you. I can imagine you sat on the back of your little boat having a brew in the morning,
Yeah.
looking at the big boat next to you. I'd have been,
So,
this is-
do I
Sarah,
do-
we're
you
getting
know-
a bigger boat.
So,
we're
do I-
going to get a bigger boat, Sarah.
So do you know what I'd done? I went on a course in Abersock, and I got my licence to drive, or steer, whatever the word is, 70-foot boats. So I bought a 60-footer,
How much was that?
$500,000.
What?
$500,000.
What?
Yeah.
How much were you earning at the time?
$500,000.
I was probably earning about 35 grand a week.
So 2 million a year.
But it was
just
on
under.
finance. It was
Yeah.
paid, it was like a mortgage, it was $4 grand a month. So when you're bringing home 80, if you're paying out 4 a month, you're still left with 76, aren't you? So it's
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
you are, Rob. Yeah, well done.
yeah, but so you don't really know it's there. You're just thinking, I'll buy that boat on finance.
What did your wife say to that?
Fred knows my wife. She was like, not having it at all. Don't, what you doing, you fool. Save for our future, blah, blah. I said, live for today. I was one of those when I played football. Live for today. Live for now.
Carpe diem.
60-footer, Sarah.
I had a white Fiesta.
Live in the moment, Sarah.
I
We need a boat.
I had a white Fiesta with white wheel trims, with cloth seats,
Yeah.
900 quid's worth, 1.1. It would only go 60 mile an hour. And when you can have a £500,000 boat for, I'm going for I thought I'm going for it. Why not?
Yeah.
So I remember I went down with my PA Tricia. You know Tricia. So I'm thinking, right, I'm going to get this big boat. Right, I'm going to buy it. So we go on the boat at the back of it. He's showing us around. Had 2 bedrooms, kitchen, lounge, an awning.
Oh, what?
Awning.
A horn?
An awning. An awning.
Oh, an awning.
An awning, which come out the back so you can have your breakfast on in the morning. So anyway, I'm buying it. So it was £500,000. And in the car on the way home, right, we stopped at the services, and I was thinking, what have I done? What have I done? So I'm sitting there in my car, and I said to Tricia, Trish, what have I done? Can I afford it? Can I afford it? And she looked at me, and she went, you're sitting in your Bentley with the roof down. You're asking me if you can afford an £500,000 boat. And this was my life.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I've got an £500,000 boat sitting in my Bentley convertible thinking, can I afford it? Because things like that don't happen to me.
Well, they do.
I mean, but they did, but I still don't believe they did.
I want to ask
I mean-
you a bit more about the psychology of all this. But Fred, did you have any extravagant purchase that you look back on and think, what the hell was I doing?
Not in that, not on that level at all. At all. I remember I bought my first house in Preston, a little house. I was proud of my house. Then I bought a flat in Manchester, a nice 3-bedroom flat in Castlefield. Because I went from $2.5 grand a year on my first Lancashire contract. That was what I got, $2.5 grand a year. And then you work up through the ranks. So it was $2.5 grand a year. Then you play a lot for the second team, get your second team cap, or play with the first team. You go up to $16.5 grand a year. And then you go to the top wage of $28 grand a year. So it was all pretty much staged. But I thought that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But then when I started playing for England at 20, I got one of them central contracts. I was probably getting 50, 60, 70 grand a year, a few endorsements, bumping it up a little bit. And I bought a house. I bought an house for a few bob, and I got 2 cars. I had a BMW X5.
Did you?
Yeah. I had a little Porsche Boxster that I didn't
The
really
Boxster, you?
You know what I did? You know what I did was I was in Pakistan on tour, and I bought it on the internet.
Did you?
Well, not really. It wasn't really the
Boxster?
internet then. I bought it from somewhere in Somerset from a dealership.
I can't imagine you driving around the plus size of you.
Oh, I could steal him.
The Antil mob.
Oh,
Remember, what was that
it seemed
film?
a good idea at the time. So we had the house, had the 2 cars, and
What was that when the guy used to run at the bottom of the car and his head used to go? Oh, yeah. I suppose Fred Flintstone, yeah. Oh, it's...
you're still reeling from spending $500,000 on a boat. So I bought this. I had the 2 cars, and I was earning a bit of money, but I wasn't very good with money. And it's a simple equation. If you're spending more than what's coming in, you're struggling.
And you were doing that.
I was a little bit, yeah, because I'd go out and I wouldn't care. Like some things I was really tight on, like clothes. I'd have a certain level.
And you still are.
Oh, hey! All right, Giorgio. So I'd have a certain level, and I appreciate what something costs, and I wouldn't go above it. But if I went out, I used to not care.
Yeah.
So I used to spend, and I didn't really take the tax man into account neither.
Yep.
So you go out, and then it came to a point where I was in a relationship. It all ended. Getting rid of the house, getting rid of the cars. Couldn't pay me. You're on the phone there, Rob.
Freddie.
Hey,
My Freddie.
I couldn't afford to pay my tax bill, so I had to sell everything. I was brassic. So I borrowed money off Chubby Chandler, who was looking after me at the time, to pay my tax bill.
Hello?
And then started again. And after that, I started realising more the value of money. But I've never been particularly good with it, because although I don't care, I don't care. I really don't. So I've never really done stuff for money, apart from the jungle and a couple of things. But when I played cricket, I just wanted to play for Lancashire and England. I played in the IPL. I didn't like it because I didn't want to play for Chennai.
But your income in your 20s, it went up steadily, incrementally, didn't it?
Really.
To an extent.
It didn't. It went up steadily, and then the worst thing was, like, say you bought a house, and I've moved a lot. You buy a house, and then all of a sudden you start earning more money, and you think, you know what, I want a bigger house, and then you get into this rat race of doing that.
Yeah.
Well, now I've gone the other way. I want a smaller house now. I want to downsize. Not that we live in a massive household, but we just know what I need. All right, Rob, pipe down, son, pipe down. But yeah,
But psychologically, Guy, I think a lot of people will be listening in and thinking, you know what, it must be surreal
Mate,
to
it's-
go
yeah.
from a low
Incredible.
wage, an average wage, suddenly in Rob's case, he's earning £2-3 million a year.
No, it wasn't never that much.
But if you're earning 40
About-
grand a week,
about-
that's
about-
$2 million a year.
Yeah.
So
Remember you-
that's still...
Remember
that's
you
still-
taxed on it, though?
Yeah, okay, gross.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're earning at 50% tax, which it probably was back then,
Yeah.
over $1 million a year. That's 20 grand a week net.
Surreal is the word. Surreal, because, you know, both of us come from nothing. We come from nothing. And when money is like incomprehensible amounts when it goes into your bank account at the end of every month. It's like, oh my God, what do you mean? What for doing what you love doing?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Did you get any training, any help, any assistance, any guidance on what to do with that amount of money? Because it doesn't last forever. Most sports people, they get to the end of their career and they have this very sharp rise in income and then they fall off the edge of a cliff. Did you get any advice on how to shepherd and marshal your money so you'd be protected, you and your families, after you retire?
I think that happens. Well, I don't know about football, but in cricket, because if you're a county cricketer, a good county cricketer, your wages are probably somewhere from 25 a year to 100 grand a year for the very top ones. And whilst you're earning that, you think this is brilliant. You know, excuse me, that coffee's coming back. But you keep earning this money and you think it's going to last forever. Sense and everything's telling you it's not, but you don't really prepare for it. And there's so many of my friends that I played cricket with, and I feel bad at times, and I feel lucky as well, the fact that I managed to work after and keep going all right. Where some of my mates, they've not got jobs, they've not got work, the pressures that must be upon them and their families, because a lot of them are taken out of education, they're taken out of school at 16, 17, not use the time off in the winters as wisely as they could have done looking back, where they could have trained, they could have done something else. And there is that, one day you're getting paid, you get a regular wage. I found it. You know, you get your regular ECB wage, and then one day it just stops.
Yeah. Well,
Do you know what, Matthew?
on that,
Do you know what, Matthew? I wish now, looking back, and it's a long story for another day. I wish that every penny I earned, I would have just kept in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Why? No, you got that boat, right?
Yeah.
You bought a boat, and it sounds, for all intents and purposes, a mistake.
I saw it 6 months later for 300.
Yeah.
So you lost 200k.
Plus the £17,000 I paid to moor it in Antibes in France for the
Antibes in
for
France?
the 6 weeks.
They said it was an Abersock.
Plus the petrol. No, I put it in Antibes in France. I wasn't happy with Abersock. Yeah. You can't have a 60-foot in Abersock. I wanted to go to Cannes and Antibes.
Did you drive it to
I drove
Antibes?
it. No, we got it on a big truck. But then when it was there...
It's a boat. Why did you put it on a truck? Why don't you just drive it?
Fred,
you bought a boat and then you drove it like a static caravan to Antibes.
No, but I didn't. So the truck driver did.
But that's a £250,000 loss
in 6 monds. Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, but from my perspective,
did it put any stress on the marriage?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Did you use it? Did you have an holiday?
I was 6 weeks. I was CaptainSav. CaptainSav was brilliant. The arguments me and my wife had were incredible. I also bought. What about this? I also bought a red Hummer. It was like a fireman going to training. Big red Hummer. But you know what? I got that much pressure from the lads in the dressing room. I had to spray it black. I had to change the colour. I was getting hammered every day. Every time I come in.
I remember there was a bit of a fashion with the football was an Hummers, wasn't there? A bit of a fashion.
Yeah, I bought an Hummer.
Beckham got one, so you got one.
I got that much pressure in the change room. I turned up the next week. It was black.
I bought a pickup truck.
Did you?
An F-150 Harley Davidson pickup truck.
Oh, I seen that. I remember you having that. I'm sure I did.
With big. It was massive. It did about 3 miles to a gallon. You drove out the gates and you had to fill up. And the engine was too powerful for the car. Unless you had a ton of bricks in back end was everywhere. And I was driving to my mate's house, right? Was going horse racing. And my mate, he had helicopters, so he said, we'll go in helicopter horse racing. So I'm trying to get there, and I'm going down this country lane, taking a shortcut, and I've gone round a corner, and back end's flown out. I've tried to correct myself, and then back end's come back the other way. I've got my window open on left-hand drive. I've gone through an edge. I've gone through a fence and in a field. I thought, what do I do? Oh, edge is in here. It's cut me head, and I'm thinking, oh, God, here we go. So I think, I've got to get out of it. I'm going to drive off. Car won't start. And then this car comes over, I get out, and this fella comes out and says, like, you all right? Oh, Fred, how are you, mate? You all right? I said, yeah, I'm fine. All good, mate. And then we started having a laugh. The next minute, this farmer woman turns up, starts shouting at me. She's saying, oh, what are you doing racing around here?
She had a deep voice, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. She said, it's them horses in face. Them horses were at the fence. When you came through, they'd be dead. I said, to be honest with you, love, they were, but when they saw me coming through, they ran off. Right? So then... There's just all these people started turning up. I didn't know what to do because everyone's shouting at me and everyone's getting upset. So I thought, you know what I can do without this. So I just locked the car and walked off to my mate's house. And then we were flying. This is terrible. We then flew over in the helicopter going on the way to horse racing to see all of these people pointing and arguing around my car. I got a glass of champagne on in the helicopter. That was a bad buy.
Either of you got any friends, colleagues, former teammates who got into genuine difficulty because they were overspending when they were earning the big money and then they fell off the edge?
I don't know, but, you know,
I'll tell you why I mention this, Rob. Jeff Scott, head of ex-pro charity that looks after former professional footballers, says that 3 in 5 Premier League footballers, despite earning an average of $30,000 a week, are bankrupt within 5 years.
Do you know in the dressing room, Rob? Do you know when people are earning that much money?
Yeah.
Does the spending become competitive?
I
don't mean like competitive,
yeah,
like it's a competition, but like one month somebody buys a Bentley or a Ferrari, the next one buys a Lamborghini.
Yeah, it's a good question.
So when you talk about footballers going bankrupt at the end of the career, the statistics you mentioned, it's trying to keep that lifestyle.
Materialism.
To be fair to a lot of footballers as well, Matthew, it depends what advice they've had as well.
I was going to wonder about that.
Depends what advice you've had, you know. Have you invested wisely? Have you invested, you know, thinking you're investing correctly?
I've been stung on that. Well, you had like the financial advisors. I had a financial advisor. Better not mention his name, but you trust these people. They come and they put you into things. comes to your christenings, comes to the wedding, he's a friend. And then all of a sudden, end of your career, you get the performance of what he's put you into and absolutely nothing.
You know, Jeff Scott said dozens of players have been drawn into investing in unregulated investment schemes, from carbon trading to software companies. In many cases, players are invested not in one scheme, but as many as 8. And we're certain that some agents are on commission from investment vehicles. In other words, what he's saying here is kickbacks. And I worry deeply about the people who are surrounding young footballers, because young footballers, they're inexperienced, they're immature, they're magnets for the wrong kinds of people who want to take a bit of the action.
Well, I was naive because I invested in things, not like software companies and things like that, but you get a financial advisor and he's got the things he wants to put you into, and he talks it up and you think, you know what, this guy knows his stuff and I know him, he's been put onto me by someone, I trust him, I like him. You know, if it's cricket, talk to me. If it's about investment, he's my man here. And as I say, he put me into all this stuff. Yeah. And luckily, I've heard some horror stories from other people who've just completely lumped in and put everything in and then found wanting at the end with the same bloke. And the investments he put me into are sour. Yeah. You know, but luckily, I didn't. I wasn't.
You weren't
position,
all in.
But I wasn't in a position then to lump in or put all in.
Yeah.
But I just find that as a massive learning curve.
It's a tragedy.
I think,
just on agents as well. They had this thing where we'll take away everything, all the hassle of living, apart from breathing and playing cricket. We'll take that off you, so you can just concentrate on the game. But that's not life. You finish, you can't do all.
Yeah, totally agree.
You can't do it. You're scratching your head. How'd you book on holiday?
Yeah, Fred's hit the nail on the head.
I agree.
Yeah. Because you know, if I wanted to buy a TV, I'd go to a TV shop, wouldn't I? I think. Wouldn't I? I'd go to a TV shop. If I wanted to buy an holiday, I'd go to somewhere where you can get a travel agent.
Yep.
If I wanted to buy a car, I'd go to
get the point,
a car dealer. All right. But
what if you wanted to buy? No.
But I played football, Matthew. I played football, and as Ferry says, I just wanted to be the best I could as a footballer. And for all my other stuff, people would do it for you. Do you mean? So all I had to do was concentrate on football. And
well, maybe we can do that another week. Yeah. Next topic: black box thinking. Now, this is my topic, a book that I've written recently, and this is about how the most successful individuals and institutions are the ones that know how to fail well. And the title of the book comes from the black boxes in aviation. Whenever there's a crash, it's a tragedy. People lose their lives. But they have these 2 indestructible black boxes on every single commercial aircraft. One records the electronic data, the other records what's called the ambient sound. So you can rescue the boxes from the rubble of the crash, figure out what went wrong, so reforms can be put in place so the same mistake never happens again. So they're constantly learning from their mistakes. And that's why the accident rate for major airlines is last year 1 crash for every 8.3 million takeoffs. To me, that is a powerful model of how we should engage with failure, confront it, interrogate it, and learn. The contrast is with medicine, where doctors find it difficult to admit to their mistakes. They're worried about being litigated. They've got big egos. So instead of saying, yeah, we've made a mistake here, we need to learn the lessons, put reforms in place, they often say, oh, that was an unavoidable death. Or that's just a complication of the procedure. And because they're not learning, preventable medical errors, one of the biggest killers in the Western world. In the United States alone, about 400,000 people die every year. It's like 2 jumbo jets crashing every day, 9/11 happening every 4 days. But I think this is true not just of institutions, but individuals. So you look at great sports people, they fail. We all fail in life. It's an inevitability. The question is, do we learn from it? Have we got the resilience to deal with it? Or do we give up or try and pretend it didn't happen? And you look at Michael Jordan, David Beckham, great footballers, great cricketers, they all knew how to fail well. And that, I think, is...
I could fail well, don't worry about that, man. Do not worry about that. The problem is I can't always remember my failures. Just a quick one before we go on to sport. You know, you mentioned in the medical profession where you're saying about documenting and you say it's an unavoidable error. Is that not a double-edged sword in the fact that, yes, you want it documented, however, then people will be prosecuted for making negligent mistakes? So if you're going to go down that route, you wouldn't get people going and taking on operations and performing them anyway, because they know, like we all do in life, we all make mistakes. And professional surgeons, doctors are no different. The problem is with their mistakes, mine, is if I miss a ball, I'm out. If a heart surgeon or a brain surgeon makes a minor mistake, it could be death.
Yeah.
If you're going to hold them accountable, then will you get people going into that profession?
It's a great question, but
Thank
most of the errors in healthcare are not because of negligence, but because of problems in the system. So a nurse gives a patient the wrong drug because the labelling's confusing, or because...
But still, someone is still accountable for doing that. And if you're documenting everything, that nurse who's handed that over, or that person who's had an off day and stuck the wrong label on something, is accountable and will be prosecuted. You would not get people going into them professions.
That's why you shouldn't have prosecutions for that kind of...
But you
error.
will. That's the way of the world.
I don't
law,
think you
isn't
should.
it?
Well, that's what you shouldn't have, because what you need to do is find out what the system problems were at play.
But you're always going to
change the
get
labelling,
mistakes.
change the ergonomic.
You're always going to get a mistake.
Yeah.
You mentioned in aircraft disasters, 8 million and whatever, and one crash.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's still one crash, and someone's accountable, or there's a reason for that one crash. Even if you do perform 10 million, 50 million operations, within there will be some human error or some error where someone's accountable.
Occasionally, there is genuine human error. The vast majority of errors in healthcare is not because someone's negligent. It's because there's something in the system that has gone wrong. So you don't want to prosecute that person. That's one of the problems, by the way, in healthcare. People are so worried about being blamed for honest mistakes, they don't own up to them. What you want are people owning up to their mistakes, finding out what the system problems were at play, adapting those. And the more open the hospitals are, this is the interesting thing, the less their insurance liability premiums. They go down. Virginia Mason Hospital in Seattle dropped by 78%.
What did they spend to get to that point?
They didn't have to spend very much. They were just, they did have to make some upfront costs to change the ergonomic design of the machines, some of the ways they labelled drugs, some of the procedures that were deployed for surgical operations. But broadly speaking, the balance sheet improved as a consequence of their openness and their transparency. But you're right. I mean, it's a difficult balance to get right, but it's how we respond to failure rather than saying, you know what?
Does anybody want a cup of tea?
So, I forgot we're on a podcast.
You two, you're quite clever, you
Thanks
are,
very
Freddie.
much.
Yeah.
Okay, let's transition into sport.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying
Well,
that
I
was
think we should,
interesting.
Robbie. People don't want that.
That
Come
was
on.
interesting.
If people want that, read the book. Go on, Robbie.
I was
Sport,
interested in that.
mistakes.
Biggest failure.
According to Black Box Thinking.
Yeah, so what was something that went terribly wrong in your career? What did you learn? And how did you adapt?
I think with the manager, Martin O'Neill, on one occasion, I learned never to get too close or try and be the manager's mate. I think that was the big one. Martin O'Neill he signed me. He's a legend, still friends with him now. I remember I got really close to him. Well, I thought I did. And it was on one occasion, first game of the season, Fred, Old Trafford, 2-2. We drew with Manchester United. We were 2-0 up. And the 89th minute, I'd done a pass back the goalkeeper. It was a bad back pass. Anyway, it resulted in, I think it was Andy Cole or Dwight York going through, getting a corner. From that corner, they scored. Mm-hmm. And then I gave away the free kick in the 95th minute, 5 minutes in injury time. Beckham scored from the free kick. So I'm in the change room. You know, I was in tears. Thinking, oh my! But I played okay. Anyway, nothing more was said. I was apologising to the boys, and then about 6 months later, I'm on the team bus. So the team bus, it's the tables. You got 2 and a 2.
Yeah.
Table of 4, but never 2 and a 2 and 4. Yeah, I'm on form today. So I was opposite the gaffer, Martin O'Neill. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he's telling stories, and Martin's stories. He's a very intelligent guy. Loves all the law stuff and criminal stuff, and he's telling one of the stories. So I thought, right, I'm close to the gaffer now. I'm getting on really well with him. So I went and nodded off
As a joke.
Oh well, wow. Seriously,
No,
that was it. That was.
Wait,
it.
he went off, did he?
Oh, seriously, he absolutely embarrassed me in front of the old coach. He started rubbing his eyes, going, "Sorry, Gaffer, 2-2 Man U." Mate, seriously, I felt so small, and that was my lesson. Wow. Never, ever, ever think you're great mates or good mates with the manager, because he is the boss. And from that day on,
He's the gaffer.
Never did I ever try and be friendly in that way, take the mick out of a manager in front of people, because it backfired.
How did it work out after that?
Fine. For a week, he didn't speak to me. And walked past me. But I was in his team. And then, You know, it just gradually got back. Like I knew the line. There was a line, and I would never ever cross that line ever again with a manager. Oh, Sparky. You know, with Sparky, what I call him Sparky, my mate was my hero. It was a bit different, but I would never go over that line with Sparky. I mean, it was a big moment in my young career, thinking there's a line with the manager. Do not cross that line.
Wow. What about you, Fred? I get the impression that you're somebody who, deep down, are resilient when things go wrong on the pitch. When you've had disappointments, you came back fighting.
You know what? In some ways, I quite enjoyed the disappointments.
Right.
Once the dust had settled and you got over the fact that you'd underperformed, you'd made a mistake, I quite liked it. Mm-hmm. I like that when you come back from it and you shut people up, you prove people wrong, you rebuild and come back. I remember when I was young, when I was about 19, I was playing for Lancashire second team. I should have been in the first team. I was having a bit of a stinker. I got caught off an off spinner mid-on, played a shocking shot, came in. And I was never like a big tantrum one. Like some lads, when they get out, throw massive tantrums. And they throw everything and they kick their helmets and everything's going off. I was quite chilled about it. I was, like, in my head, I was thinking, oh, what did you do? But I never really kicked off. But then this one time, I came in, I booted my helmet across the dressing room. I threw my gloves, I threw my bat and sat down, got up and just punched out straight with my right hand. And then, just punched the wall. Right? And then I was having a dump, right? I was on the toilet and I had my head in my hands. And then I thought, hang on a minute, my hand's a bit sore here. And I've looked at my hand, I've got this massive egg on my hand. Oh. And I thought, that doesn't look good. So I had to go and see the coach at the time, Aussie Peter Sleep. So I lied to him, I said, Sleepy, I got hit when I was batting today, I think I bust my hand. He says, oh, you got hit when you was batting, did you? I says, yeah. I think just took one on the hand and I think I bust my hand. So I had to go to hospital, got x-rayed. I broke one of my bones in my hand. I had to have my hand pinned. I was in for 6 weeks. I had a pin coming out my hand. And then that night I went to Sleepy's room and knocked on his door and I says, you do know I punched the wall, don't you? He says, yeah, I just hoping you'd tell me. And then I had to go and tell Bumble. Bumble was at Lancs. And Bumble was so good to me and looked after me. And I'd built it up in my head. I think he's going to kick off at me. He's going to go off at me. I just really don't want to do this. And I went up and he said, you Andrew, you all right? I said, no, Bumble. Oh, sorry, David. I said, I broke my hand. I punched the wall when I was out. He just looked at me. He goes, that was stupid, wasn't it? Walked off. And it was the worst thing he could have done. Yeah. It was horrible. I wish he'd have shouted at me or something because I just got this sense I've let the fella down. You know, I've let him down. It was awful. But you know what? Do you know the other side of making mistakes? And you talk about your black box and all that. Yeah. And you talk... Well, one of the things I found as a player is I did make the same mistake a lot of times.
What was it?
Well, it was a few. One of them was I got the dosage wrong on the alcohol the night before, which I did quite a few times. But sometimes it spurred me on a little bit because everyone knew I'd had a few. I have to pull it out of the bag, right? But then the other one is I relate it to an off spinner, right? I'm batting against an off spinner people who don't know cricket, you're batting against an off spinner. It's a slow bowler and the ball turns into you. So you think the leg side is where you're going to score. You're going to play with the spin and turn it into the leg side, which if your right hand is to your left. And every time the off spinner threw one up, I just thought 6 off mid-wicket every time. Every time. I could not get it out of my head. I couldn't get it out of my head. I saw it every time thinking, if it goes up, I get it for 6. And every time was a tug-of-war between myself and not playing that shot. Where sense would say, either just defend it, play off the back foot, you've got all the offside, you've got all these shots, but for some reason, whether it's muscle memory, whether it's pressure, whether it's panic, all I felt was, I'm going to hit me for 6 of them. And the number of times I got caught out there, number of times is ridiculous. And you think, I'm not stupid. I'm really not. I am a little bit. But I'm really not stupid. Why am I keep hitting it out there? And then even to the point, right, I played a couple of games last year for All the Edge, and I go out there to bat.
There was hundreds there as well, by the way.
Oh, thousands, millions.
Hundreds there was.
High standard, right? And even now, I go out to bat and I've got all these shots I want to play in my head. That off spinner pops one up, I think mid-wicket. I got caught there again.
So if he'd
talk about not learning from your mistakes.
If he'd have come to you, then if you'd have come to you there with your analogy of black box thinking, what would you have told him? What would you have done with him?
Stop doing the same thing over and over. Try and figure out what it is about the muscle memory that's causing him to fall into that temptation. Because it was a temptation, right? You were seeing the ball.
But it's a temptation because I know I can hit it out of the ground.
Yeah.
And I enjoy doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But you shouldn't always try and do it.
I tell you what also might be interesting to hear your view on this. David Gower, would often get caught in the slips. He would flash outside off stump. But you know what? He would get out a lot that way, and people would condemn him for doing so, but he scored a hell of a lot of runs going through the covers.
Yeah.
So sometimes what looks like a weakness is also an incredibly good strength, and you've got to deconstruct the upside of what you're gaining from the big shots, from the extravagant shots, and then contrast it with what you're losing from the downside of playing those shots. In Gower's case, you can't condemn him for getting out to slip, given how many runs he got through cover and extra cover.
Yeah, but they never won.
But, is that the 1980 England?
1980,
Yeah, it was.
Forget about it. The other one was when I was batting, because I bowled a bit, and when the ball came into bat, I tried to hit him. I just wanted to hit him on the head and just hurt him. So when I went into bat, I knew, because I'm tall, because I was good off the front foot and drives, I knew that we were going to come at my head. I knew it. As soon as I went out to bat, I was like, I have a flashing light on my head, and they want to knock it off.
Yeah.
So what they'd do was, I try and explain. So you stood there, and then on the leg side where the umpire stands, they put a man back on the boundary, and they'd have a fine leg. And then they bring on the fastest bowlers to bowl bouncers at me. And although I didn't particularly like it, you're trying to hit you on head, I could play it to some degree. But what I do was I think...
Is that the hook shot?
The hook shot and the pull shot. And I think, you know what? Here he comes. He's coming in. And when you watch a bowler, I can't tell you what it is. There's a tell which... Yeah. I see him do something and I think it's a bouncer. So there's a tell in there. I really don't know what it is. Yeah. But it's a tell. And I watch it and I think it's a bouncer. Just get out of the way of it. He's got a man back. And then, no. I'm having a bit of this. And then I'd always take the hook on. And I got so many runs hooking and trying to take on the field. But I got out a few times as well.
Yeah.
But it was weighing it up. And you know what? I couldn't help myself.
So how would you relate that then to parents out there, Matthew, who are their kids, or kids out there who want to be a sportsman of any level and they keep making the same mistakes? How would you relate your book, Black Box Thinking, to parents and to the kids out there now?
I think this is massive for parenting because the amount of children who try something new, they play like the violin and they're not immediately playing fantastically, or they're doing maths in a classroom and they're not solving the problem and they assume, I'm not cut out for this, I haven't got the right kind of brain, and they give up. What we want in young people is resilience, the capacity to have those challenges, those failures, their setbacks, and to say, you know what, I'm going to learn from that. I'm not going to give up. That, West Point, the military training academy in the United States, unbelievably tough to get through. And they had this score of people's talent, how strong you are, your grade point average, how good your reasoning is. Then they had a 5-minute questionnaire that just got their grit, their resilience. Do we persevere when we hit difficulties? The questionnaire was a better predictor of who got through the West Point Training Academy than that complex matrix of how strong they were and how bright they were. That's what we want on our young people, the soft skills. The thing that you can't really see that Beckham has, that Michael Jordan, here's a quote.
Soft skills, what do you mean?
Yeah,
like something that's more difficult to see, a psychological quality that tells you if you're hitting difficulties, it's not a reason to give up. Jordan said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. I've failed over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. And I think that you interview any great athlete, any great scientist, any great inventor, you find that they have had real tough challenges, but they weren't prepared to give up.
Is that why, then, I'm not putting myself in that bracket, don't worry, is that I can remember all my failures far clearer than any successes. I can tell you how I got out pretty much every time I got out.
Right.
I can't tell you I can't tell you how many runs I've scored, how many I've only got.
Fred, I've got to tell you, I've interviewed Jack Nicklaus and Jackie Stewart and so many of the great sports people. They're exactly the same.
Robbie just remembers his handful of good games.
See, my biggest...
Who was it? Mark and Zola?
My biggest failure, and I suppose where I could relate Black Box Thinking to, was getting released by Manchester United at 19. That was an opportunity where I could have been one of those guys in the pub, or you see in the street saying, do you know what, I could have been a footballer, but I had a bad knee.
Yeah.
I had this, I had that, I had too many pints, I chose that way. I could have been one of those people who sat there drinking a pint of lager and saying, yeah, I was a good footballer, but do you know what?
No, Rob, do you know what, Rob?
I didn't. Well,
You couldn't have been one of those people.
Yeah.
no, but
You couldn't. No, you couldn't.
No.
You couldn't.
No, I suppose I couldn't. No,
Because you've said and we've acknowledged that you're not like that.
No.
You're not. You got every bit. And how many Premier League games do you play?
346.
Robbie, I think you're right. You are such a great example of a resilient person. You don't want to make excuses. You don't want to say what could have been. You want to be totally intellectually honest when something went wrong and think, how could I do better? You said in like 2 podcasts ago, you have no regrets because you maximised your ability. You train hard. You went to bed at the right times. You learned when things went wrong and you adapted as a consequence.
But you still get it now. You know, if I go home to Wrexham, or I'm not sure you'll get it, Fred, but that person, I could have been, you know, he wasn't that good. Yeah. I could have done what he done. All he done was run around and tackle a few people.
My face didn't fit.
I could have, my face didn't fit. You know,
the coach didn't like me.
I hurt my knee. And to be fair, there will be some people who suffered major injuries and, you know, couldn't do it. But for every person I've heard saying, I could have done what you done, you know, I was better than you, but I didn't. My face didn't fit.
It's a perfect example of your openness about your mistakes. We started the podcast today. What have we done in the previous week? You talked about Malta. I talked about British rowing. You talked about the howler you made in the first minute of that commentary. Yeah. That's the openness.
Yeah. And
that I think is a powerful thing. Most people like to cover up their mistakes.
But that was an honest mistake because I'd done my work. And Fred and on, you know, I do my work. And why does that happen then? Just an honest, why does that happen?
Just getting back to what he said before, it's human error.
That was human error. Yeah.
We're getting back to resilience, and you talk about kids learning the violin. Mm-hmm. It's them parents at assembly need resilience. I've never heard a good one yet. Never heard a good one. Or a trumpeter.
On the parent thing,
Never give a kid
I know
a
we've done
trumpet.
this before, right? But on the parent thing, I seen such a great picture on social media at the weekend. I'm just going to find
radio. This Rob, it doesn't really it doesn't.
But you two just keep.
You're gonna have to describe it well, aren't you?
I'll describe it well, right? So this was a picture that actually Michael Vaughan put on his Instagram page at the weekend. It was a picture a local kids coach put on the side of the pitch. It said, please remember, these are kids, this is a game, the coaches are volunteers, the referees are human, this is not the World Cup. Yeah. I think that was absolutely brilliant. I'm going to show it to the camera now if you can see it. I don't know what I'm doing now because I think Lou might put it on one of those things. They're good, aren't they? What she does.
I don't know about.
You know when you see your clips on social media and there's like all the words underneath it?
No.
You do, you've seen it.
I don't know
when the
about.
camera's on it, but Lou does them. It's really good, Lou, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great, Lou. Thanks, Lou. Right, a quick...
Lou.
Yeah, Lou,
all right.
yeah.
You threw me then.
Yeah, well.
You show descriptions. All them things on Twitter from 5 Live and Lou. Yes.
I just think that if we're going to have kids who are resilient, we've got to equip them with those qualities that I've been describing. And I think it is the hallmark of the greatest athletes. They have the capacity to hit the setbacks, to hit the challenges, an inevitable part of life, and they have the strength of character to see it through. Guys, thank you as ever. Thank you for listening. You can download the podcast for extended versions of all the topics we covered on this week's show at the 5 Live website and all the usual podcast places. Please use the hashtag FredSavSide to get in touch with us through the week. If you could leave a review on iTunes and give us a rating, that would be great. Big thanks to everyone who's done that already. We really appreciate it. We'll be back at the same time next week. But for now, from all of us, goodbye.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
Thank you for downloading the Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy podcast. If you like what you hear, then why not have a look at what else 5 Live podcasts have to offer at bbc.co.uk/5live.